different from my previous map reviews is that I am going to try to make it much more easier to digest. By that I mean I want to make it a lot more clicker. Usually when I do map reviews, they're usually like an hour long, stuff like that. And while there's a good chance CP Steel is going to end up like that because it's CP Steel and require it's pretty nuanced. Uh, I'm pretty much I didn't write any notes down this time. There's no script I'm working with. This is all I'm just going right into it. And something to keep in mind is that I have been banned from RGL for 3 years, and there is a high chance that I'm not like a big thing that demotivates me from making this type of content is that when I was making it back then, I felt confident I was giving the best advice possible. And truth be told, I don't know if I am anymore. I don't know if anything changed too much since I've been banned. I've been watching the game a lot. It doesn't seem like too much has changed. So I'm pretty confident I'm still going to be giving really solid advice that I think anyone that's interested in Highlanders should really go out of their way to hear. But with that being said, I do feel kind of bad that I've been out for a while, and there's a chance that again this may be just a little, uh, maybe a little out there. I may not give the best advice, so if that's the case, don't be afraid to tell me in the chat that hey, that's not how it works anymore, or something like that. But that being said, I'm gonna go over what I know. I still think it's gonna be really solid advice. I'm gonna try to make it more streamlined. I'm gonna try to get through it much faster so it's easier to watch for future reference because I am going to highlight this and hopefully upload it on my YouTube channel so people can watch it at their leisure. But that being said, I am going to be talking about Medic. Don't be afraid to say anything in the chat. If you want me to talk about anything in particular, be sure to address it. But with that being said, I'm going to get started. And the first thing I'm going to start with is offense on Medic. Offense on Medic is honestly really straightforward. The cool thing about CP Steel is that there are definitely situations where the sniper is a big worry, but not nearly as much as it is on, I would say, like a map like Payload Upward. Uh, so that makes Medic a lot more easier to play. The downside is that this map is pretty choky, which makes pipes a lot more annoying. The plus side is that a lot of gentlemen still opt to use the Iron Bomber, even with the change. I know Iron Bomber is still popular to use despite the nerf. But in my humble opinion, I do think that stock grenade launcher is more annoying to deal with on this map because there are so many chokes and it can make it a bit tedious to walk through. Uh, and then another thing is Soldier. Soldier is actually a big problem on this map for Medic. That's probably the thing that gets most Medics, is that there are a lot of ways to be flanked, and there are a lot of hiding spots. So it makes it pretty easy for a medic to kind of get fucked up randomly if they're not being self-conscious on the comms and they're not being self-conscious on the positioning of the enemy team. So if you are a newbie medic and you are playing CP Steel, this is mostly a thing for Highlander in general, but I'll make a big emphasis for it on Steel, is that it is very, very difficult to play reactive as medic on CP Steel. And by reactive, I mean that if something just kind of flies at you, you're not going to get much of a heads up that something's coming at you. A good thing about medic N6s in a lot of Highlander maps is that simply looking up every now and then is usually a good way to deter people from bombing you or making you more aware than a normal medic from things bomb you, making it easier to get around. That's not an option really on this map. And so you want to be more proactive in how you position yourself. And the easiest way to be proactive is to keep in mind about what your default spots on this map are, which are things I am going to be talking about, and reacting as quickly as you can to what the comms on your team is. Because again, you're not going to get much visibility on this map, so it makes it really hard to be again reactive. So, for example, if your team says Soldier is on A, I'll be going over this again later. Your team says Soldier is on A and you're on B. You want to position yourself accordingly because while B and A are far apart, there is always the drop down from A. So that is something you always want to keep in mind when you hear comms like that. So again, position yourself accordingly. Again, that is something I'll talk about more in detail as you get there. That is just a reference for what I'm talking about when I say proactive. Well, that being said, I'm going to talk about pushing as medic first. And pushing in medic is also pretty straightforward because your positioning is very determined on how your team wants to push a point. And I'm going to talk about the most basic pushes. While there's always little technical details you go over every team. Cool thing about CP Steel is that everyone kind of has their own ways to play the map. And I can't just go through every hypothetical situation or how every team is going to play. I'm just going to go what I believe is the most common of what I remember and talk about positioning based on that. If you need more advanced positioning from that, again, you can always ask me directly. I'm free to add on Steam. I am free to DM on Twitter. I love talking about TF2. Anyone's free to DM me. And on top of that, when it comes to very situational positioning based on your team's own play style, it is always better just to talk to your team about that instead. But I love theory crafting, so don't be afraid to hit me up. But that being said, 99% of the time we are doing pushes, everyone's going to be rushing towards A. And pushing to the A gate is very similar to how people be pushing, kind of similar to payload. You just pretty much just want to have the basic buff classes. The most important ones to buff on A are going to be Sniper, Demoman, and Heavy. They're always the most important classes to buff that are coming out of the A gate. Demoman because he's the one that's going to be locking down spawns and being behind the Heavy. The Heavy because he is essentially your tank and he'll be tanking any potential sticky traps, watching out for the Sniper and things of that nature. And then your Sniper in case they try to have a cheeky Sniper play on A. Truth be told, I don't think anyone on the right team is going to try to do anything risky on A. While I have seen people have done that a million times before in the past, it's pretty unlikely that is something that you'll see to happen because the risk versus reward from killing people on A is simply not worth it. Just makes your hold on B even more difficult. With that being said, when you have people coming out on A, the number one mistake people make is the Sniper. Something I see a lot of mistake make, blah, 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 is this area right here. A lot of medics will simply peek this far out for absolutely no reason because there's literally no reason for you to ever lock this doorway as medic, period. I cannot think of a single time for you to be pushing out this direction. You should really ever only be over here, and it should only be to heal a Sniper. Never forget the heal beam has a good reach to it, so you don't have to be hugging people that you are healing. And then if you want to make sure you are aggressively buffing people while they're trying to come out through the door, try to not walk through this window. And if any Demoman want a cool tip, this is a big reason why stock pipes can be annoying. Because if you run the Iron Bomber and you shoot through that window, pipes stop right there. They don't go much farther. Well, that obviously stops the medic. You know, it's more annoying. Default rollers that roll down the staircase make it even harder for medic to buff because as a medic, you don't want to walk up this window. If they have a Sniper, this is a very easy headshot for you to get hit by. So you always want to play here. And again, you can't always react to the pipes being thrown at you. If they're stock rollers, keep in mind that you could probably be safe and just pay attention to how far they're rolling down. And if they're Iron Bombers, you could just stay farther back a buff. That Demoman is not going to commit to a spam angle on you from there outside from when it goes over this hill. So it's usually not something for you to worry about for longer than 5 seconds. Just keep that in mind and make sure you're not eating free rolls as the medic. And then when your team is pushing up forward, ideally you never want to actually leave the spawn because, again, a big rookie mistake a lot of medics will make is coming up here. And when you come up here, this leads into a problem because this makes it so you can get backstabbed. And this is a very popular place for medics to get backstabbed because spies can get on top of here pretty easily. And this gives them a couple places to deco from here, anywhere on that cliff to over here. And that is something that you have to be extremely wary of for medic. Ideally, your pyro will be going to A for the sole purpose of trying to snuff out a spy in this situation. But it's always better to play better safe than sorry. There is absolutely nothing to gain from having medic go to A. While I'm aware of A to E or A drop down to B strategies, again, there's almost no reason for you to come out this early as medic. If for whatever reason you have to go into the A point, just remember to be super wary of the spy. Play with your back against the wall and make yourself slightly harder to backstab, and just play along like that. Always remember to play your angles like that. And remember, it's easier to get backstabs from the right side compared to the left. That is something I always forget. With that being said, while your team is pushing A, your next focus should be make sure that people that are being aggressive on B are also getting their fair amount of buffs. Mainly your sniper who probably rotated away from A at this point to start focusing on B, and your soldier. These classes are very important for making sure that you are going to get through this B tunnel because a very popular sniper sight line is this one over here. where he'll be staying. Is this something they changed in refresh? Ah, it looks like they actually changed this in the refresh version, so I might not have to talk about this. I'm going to talk about it just in case, but it looks like this actually changed. A refresh is a new version of the map to me, but I'm going to play very safe and sorry and just act like this is a thing. That sightline is no longer a thing. Yeah, typically there was a sniper watching down here, but I guess he can't do that anymore, which is pretty cool. So I'll just assume he's playing down here. But yeah, your most important aspect is make sure you're buffing your sniper. And then if the sniper has to shoot down here, also your engineer, because typically engineers will have a level 3 down here, wrangled, trying to be annoying here. But yeah, your pyro, what is it? Well, your pyro won't be there immediately, but your soldier, sniper, and with that sightline gone, your engineer will be very important to buff up here. And your soldier and scout pretty much are going to be your SAC classes, essentially, because your soldier and scout's only goal while you are capturing A is to make sure you have the room to start pressuring B. Well, obviously, it would be ideal for them to kill a medic or a Spartan class. It's very hard to do that on this point. So their only goal should be to get your room. And to get your room, they pretty much need to lock down this whole area. But it's very important for them to get buffed to do so. And as a medic, you never really want to peek this doorway like this, because all it takes is one sniper getting a quick peek shot at you to get a relatively easy body shot drop on you. So you almost never want to peek this sight line to your classes, say that this area is covered. And again, you really should be peeking that when your team's already ready to push. If your flank has that locked down, that's very good, but there's no reason for you to commit so hard to healing the flanks. That's not what you're worried about. You're waiting for your team to get ready. That column is mostly for your flank to make so your team that are capturing A can get ready to rotate to get started on B. But that being said, when you come out to here, again, I didn't really look at refresh, so I don't know if this spot is still a thing. But this is a classic soldier spot for the enemy team. This is just pretty much a free sack. I put free in quotes because usually people who have been playing the map for a while are well aware that this is a thing. So it's not something that really catches people off guard anymore, but I'm pretty sure it does in lower division. It's very important for people to keep in mind about this sack angle, or people simply just being cheeky around the corner. Something that's pretty rough about flank classes is that flank classes don't really check the corners very often, which I think should just be a standard in every single FPS you play, like, ever. So hopefully people pick up on that. But something your team always wants to be aware of, even you as a mix, that sometimes spies will be around these corners here, or maybe you have a cheeky pyro back here with his little power jack and waiting to back burner you. I've dealt with that before. It's just something that you want to be cautious of. But yeah, once your team has this B area bullied, and then you start walking out this B hallway, something you want to be careful of is that you want to put this invisible line in your head. And this invisible line starts here. You never want to walk this far forward as Meg unless you really have to, because when you walk that far forward, you become really easy to hit with spam from rockets and stickies and even pipes. That's why I like being behind this line, because it makes it much less risky, and this beam is pretty much going to heal who it has to heal. You can go farther when your team's actually pushing up, but a general rule of thumb is that you don't want to push out this doorway unless you pretty much really have to when your team is ready to push out onto B. And for most teams these days, and what I'm familiar with, is actually pushing through this area up here. Typically how the teams I used to play on would push this area is that they would have a heavy push up here behind with a pyro behind them. And with the heavy and pyro up here, they would fight the soldier and heavy to bully them off top, and would be trying to push our level 3 to up here. And something to keep in mind, this is a very big thing that I think medics should really focus on, is that pyro is a very important class for tanking and for bringing the most miles out of your pushes. So when your pyro and your heavy are in situations where they cannot focus, it is your job as the medic to be the one spy checking. And spy checking does not mean that you have to go around shooting arrows or uber sawing the spy if you think someone's a spy. You simply just have to look and say, oh, spy is X, or spy on you, etc. This so people can react to it, but you don't have to run at the spy or whatever. That's just a rookie mistake. And typically pyro and heavy are the main spy counter classes in Highlander, and sometimes the engineer, but all three of those classes are very important for pushing the B point. So that's something to keep in mind when you're trying to push B, is that your role as a mech here, a lot of your role isn't going to be try to focus on your positioning, because positioning yourself is pretty easy on this point, but it's more that you want to be aware of the spy for your team, because this is a pretty important part for you just to be aware. And something you see where I'm staying right now is medic. So that's going to be really tempting to do when you're healing people on the stairs is to go inside of here. Never do that. And the big reason why you never want to do that is because if someone runs through main, or your team is losing on a staircase, it just makes it much easier for you to get caught out. You can easily get good heals just by hugging the wall here like this, and this does make it slightly more annoying to get backstab. Obviously, your back is more shown here compared to in this corner, but honestly, it's super easy to catch out a spy in this situation. You still get the beam on your team while looking around like this, and just makes it easier for you just to run away if something comes out. While it is definitely trickier to counter spy compared to being in a corner, the risk of something just running at you or getting good spam you are in a corner is not very good. And something to keep in mind when you're holding this area too is make sure you're paying attention to what's holding down the main. Like for example, if your team is so focused on the staircase and no one's in main, you'll pretty much be shot out of luck. A sniper just come in there, a scout could just run at you, all that yada yada. Obviously, that's very not good. Ideally, in this situation, your soldier and another one of your other classes, like let's say your sniper is still watching it, your soldier and sniper still locking that area. Maybe even your demo man. Demo man is pretty flexible in this situation where demo man could be pushing this beam main or going to the staircase. He's very flexible in the situations, which is very nice. But personally, I'm used to demo man on the stairway, but I've seen demo man push the main a million times and work out perfectly fine. It's kind of personal preference. But just keep in mind as medic what's watching where, because no one's watching main and you're healing people right here or right here. High chance you're going to get fucked, which is why I do recommend being here, because it's just much easier to back out once you guys are being pressured, because spawn is just right here. You have so much room to escape, and they don't have a lot of room to chase you with. Still easy to get chased, mind you, but just keep that in mind when you're pressuring up there. Now, when your team is pressuring the B point, if you're going to go up the staircase here, only ever come up the staircase if your team absolutely has it locked down. Now, I think it's a really good idea to pressure the staircase and come up here as met, because you have height advantage, and having the height advantage during a fight is very important to have. So taking uber charge from up top onto the enemy team and staying up here is very important, because you leave it the height ad. It's harder to get chased up here. Sometimes engineers will have a teleport inside of here, and that is something to be wary of, but your team should be the ones taking that out. Ideally the heavy, after you finish taking out the enemy combo that was up here, combo being the soldier and heavy that were previously up here. Or, what is it? Or, your soldier, whatever. That teleport just has to be gone. But once you get up here, you don't ever want to peek out like this. I've made this mistake a million times in my life. But if you're peeking out and about like this, I think it explains for itself. You're in a very heavy sight line. It's easy to get spanned by every explosive on the map. It's easy to get chip shot. It's easy to get bombed. And it's easy to straight up a sight line. It's easy to get headshot here, because snipers will typically back up to over here or over here when the fight is not in their favor. So ideally you want to play over here where you're not in any trouble with sight line. And keep in mind, snipers can be tricky and be over there, but you have the room to see them here, which is a big benefit of pushing up here as medic. Literally the only thing you have to worry about is a soldier bomb. And a professional tip I can give you is that if you see you're a heavy fighting things up here, you're in the middle of a fight, just stay over here healing that heavy. Unless you're winning that fight, then you want to go more forward. But in the meantime, to win that fight, you can simply stay down here, take your heavy, focus on keeping the height ad for your team, and pay attention to that soldiers be, because soldiers are the only class that can fuck you up, or anything that comes from behind here. If you see a spy or a scout or a pyro or anything run at you, don't stay here. Then when something runs at you from behind like that, you're better off running to your heavy, saying, "Heavy, something is on me." Well, obviously, I was just talking about you don't want to run into sight lines. In a situation where you're guaranteed to get shot by something versus where you might get shot by something, you're going to take the gamble and go protect yourself and take the gamble that you might get shot compared to, okay, you're definitely going to die if you stay here. Just something to keep in mind. Your heavy is really good at protecting here, because this is such a straight hallway that something does try to flank you in a situation, which will happen. It's very easy to get flanked here. Your heavy is very good at mulching. And ideally, you would also have either your Devilman and Pyro, or Devilman and or Pyro with here. Both classes are very good at destroying things here, even your soldier. And as I said, usually when I push this way, I have an engineer here as well with level 3, and level 3 speaks for itself. They're kind of going to get instant mulched if they try push me up here. Now, that being said, if you're a medic that ends up walking through lower main, really the only thing you have to worry about is just pay attention on the comm on the enemy demo man and make sure there's no traps. It's really easy to die to sticky traps. So over this choke point we are going through, it is your team's duty to watch out for sticky traps. It's also your responsibility to make sure you're calming, that you are conscious of sticky traps, so your team can watch out on that for you. And then another thing to be wary of is the sniper sight line. The sniper has a really solid sight line coming through this lower main, which is why I'm not a big fan of pushing through this point. But it's something to keep in mind when you're coming through that lower main, because it obviously it's just a huge sight line. This can pin you to a wall, and it's very hard. And that very big mistake I see Megs make is walk over here when they get the push done. You don't want to do that. You want to be over here, and you can simply just crouch if you're worried about the sniper re-peeking. Crouch and look up to help deny bombers, or help fight against bombers. I think they got rid of this. I'm pretty sure this used to clip against you, but I think they might have fixed this in this version of the map. But yeah, you can just simply stay down here and just look up, and you also want to be aware of spies. This is a very popular decloak spot for spies. They like to decloak there, or they like to decloak up here. As a Meg, it is again going to be a bigger responsibility of yours to be aware of the spy while you're doing this push onto second. And as you're pushing out, don't be afraid to crouch every now and then, just to make, if you're scared of snipers, just make sure you're looking up for the spam and soldier, and make sure you're turning around every now and then for spy. If you want to know the routine I had when here, if I went through lower main, I played like this. I was already doing this. Oh, like I'm fucking like scared out of my mind. That's because I am scared out of my mind. It's so easy to die there during that lower push. But ideally, that's the best way I played it. If the sniper is dead, then it gets way easier. I only personally recommend going to the lower main if the sniper is dead or is a non-issue for your team, i.e. a sniper diff. And if the sniper is not an issue, you're not worried about the sniper, he's taken care of, then you can play over here to your heart's content, which is 100 times easier for medic. Just keep in mind, you only want to play out this far because the sniper is dead. Don't get too greedy. And then another thing to keep in mind while you're getting this B point surrendered, or while you're captured and the red team surrenders to you, is where you're standing while you're capturing B. You don't want to stand right here because of the spot up here. They can easily spam you from over here. And you don't want to stand over here because you can get headshot really easily. Personally, what I did is I just stood over here like this. I just had my team comms going out. The demo man was pressing the window. Then I would back up a little more like this. But again, it could be a little tricky. Ideally, medics don't even need to capture. So in ideal world, you'll probably just be capturing a point like this. You're not going to be a main point to spam focus. But it's also pretty tricky because standing over here. Or I guess in hindsight, you could really just stand here. Standing here just solves all those problems. I never really thought about that. See, we learn something new every day. Yeah, staying over here really solves all that problem. I don't see any problem with this. The only thing you have to worry about is a spy. And if the spy is an issue, this is just you just do this. Very similar to holding B, but we'll talk about that later. Yeah, you can easily just stand here. The only thing you have to worry about is the spy. And please keep in mind that a spy can backstab you through here. So if you're walking up against the wall like this, you can get backstabbed. That's a very cheesy thing that spies can pull off on you. Something to remember. Because that never happened to me, but I've seen it happen. It's something spies talk about doing all the time. So just keep that in mind. You don't want to walk with your back turned to this. You want to walk back turned to this and, just stay away from that fucking tiny-ass window. And then when your team is trying to push from B to C, there is a couple ways to handle it. Number one thing you want to be wary of is to make sure this whole area is cleared out. And I can see in the refresh version that this whole dip is all taken care of. So I imagine this was done to make it easier to retreat out of the B point. This also should make it much easier for you to clear out the area when you're trying to push. Because there is many times where my team's pushing, I'm suddenly shocked that there's a pyro inside this area. And then I'm just kind of dead. Or even something up here. I've seen times where heavies are actually shooting the point it's captured, and the heavy just stands here, and people just forget the heavies here. It's very important to make sure this room is cleared out because a lot of people will go here as a last-ditch effort to get something done. And then, as a medic, you don't want to be standing like this during this push. You want to be walking like this. And then when your team is called that they have this area locked down. So if your team is standing here and spamming, but they're still fighting, it's not locked down, you don't want to peek this too early. This is a very common sight line for the sniper right here. That's something to be super wary of. I have dropped like countless times because the sniper was there and I just got ahead of myself. Wait for it to be cleared, and when it's cleared, then you can peek forward like this and make sure you're hugging the left side. And as your team is pushing forward, you switch back over to the right side. If you hug on the left side still, the sight line opens up for the sniper again if he's standing back over there instead, or it makes it easier for you to get spam. And then on top of that, when you get to this point, the sniper has a chance to get a shot on you just from pretty much from their spawn. So you gotta make sure that you rotate to the right side when given the chance, and also avoid staying in the middle here. I'm not super familiar, or probably just don't remember very well the sniper sight lines from over there. And it looks like that might have been changed too, but I'm pretty sure it's not. But I do remember snipers can be pretty annoying when it gets to this area, so it's not, again, something to keep in mind. Be careful about your wide angle swings. Pretty much as medic all the time, you want to be hugging against the wall if you can. Just make sure you're not hugging against the wall while you also are in a position to be spammed, and it gets annoying. But yeah, once you get over here to the B point, again, make sure you're hugging the wall here. Make sure you're paying attention to the left side. And then you're just going to stay here until your team is ready to push again, ideally to the C point. Or even if they're going to the E point, you can support your team a lot from here. And when your team is ready to push to the C point, this should be pretty obvious, but you're going to be walking to the C point like that. Hugging against the wall, walking forward. And then when your team gets to here, rotate to the left side and heal your team from here. Make sure your team is calming if there's a sniper on this little dip area here. Because if you walk this far forward and there's a sniper there, you're screwed. And the reason why you want to rotate over here when you get the chance is because of spam. When you're hugging over here, it's much easier to get spammed compared to over here, because enemy demo men will be shooting stickies over here, or sometimes try to spam you through this little grate over here. Don't forget, you can eat damage from underneath here. It's very important for your team to pay attention to someone underneath here, like mostly a soldier and a demo man. But that being said, that's why it makes it pretty hard to play over here as Meg. That's why you want to play to the left side after you get swapped over here. Make sure there's pressure on the sniper and the sniper is calmed. Then don't make the rookie mistake. Don't back up to over here. When you move over here, it's very, very common for soldiers to be playing on this cliff area here. And they know a mech is playing down here. They probably won't care that there's a heavy and a pyre around there. They're just going to probably just drop on top of your head and just hopefully hit just 2 very easy rockets and kill you. It's much better to play over here, because that way if a soldier lands on top of your face and he has a chance at you 2 rockets, it's going to make it much, much more difficult for that soldier to hit 2 rockets off you, just because your positioning is just slightly a bit better. Because you're against every wall imaginable here. Over here you have a lot more freedom to work with. And another thing to keep in mind, don't try to surf rockets inside a building. At most, you can hit your space bar, but don't try to go on full-on surf. You're going to hit your head and move like an inch and just die to a second rocket much easier. You're better off not trying to do that in tight corners. Just a pro tip by me about basic medic movement. And then when your team is pushing out of C, again, keep in mind about this lower grate area. Don't be afraid to comment to your team, hey, I'm worried about the lower grate. As your team is flooding out of the doorway, you're pretty much going to be forced to walk into a sight line no matter what. Just make sure the sniper is being calmed. Ideally, as a medic, you're going to get to the ground and over here as fast as you can. Because when you get around this area, the sniper does not have very good angles on you anymore. But don't just walk out of here and me walk over here. You can only get over here if your team pretty much already has the C point locked down. Your Delman has to have this all spammed out. Your heavy has to be clearing and getting ready up top. Your soldier has to have this bombed. There's a lot that's going to go on in this situation before you can even think about going over here. Because if you go in here preemptively in front of anybody, like for example, I made this mistake plenty of times. I'll walk over here, and then I wasn't paying attention to what my team accomplished during the push and forget that, hey, there's enemy players up here, and I'm going to die very fast no matter what class is up there. Almost any class can be up there. So it's very important that you keep in mind where your team has shut down. When your team is ready to do this push, you are going to be a bit riskier with the sight lines, which is why it's very important for you to calm if the sniper is dead, or talk about the pressure on the sniper. If the sniper is being pressured, you have a lot more wiggle room to work with. And when you have pressure on the sniper, it'll be much easier to hug over here. And when the pressure and the sniper is being backed up, or you see your team's actually flooding in, like you come over here peeking, you're seeing your team getting some work done, you see that the work is done, then you can come out. And again, as a medic, this situation is going to lead into a very good opportunity for the enemy spy. Enemy spies love to decloak on this area over here. Some will decloak down here. Hell, this is a super popular decloak spot right there. Or hell, they'll come on top of the cliff. It's very important for you as a medic to make sure you're paying attention to those things. Because while I understand it may be a bit of a sensory overload situation here where you got to pay attention behind you, see how your team is pushing, and keep mental track of everything that's going on. My counterpoint to that is that medic does not have a lot of things going on to make the class difficult. That is by far the most difficult part of the class. And if you're not worrying about that, then your demo man, who is doing everything that you're doing, plus shooting on top of that, will have to worry about something on top of that. So the least you can do as a medic is to worry about those things for your team. It may be hard at first for some people or something like that, but I guarantee you it's not as hard as it sounds. Maybe a bit overwhelming for some people. I'll make it sound like this is like a NASA level project, but trust me, it's very easy once you get a rhythm going on, and it kind of becomes like instinct to keep in mind this stuff. Just keep that in mind for your team, because a simple comment like, oh, I see the spy declick, or oh, soldiers on the cliff, that stuff will save your team so much headache if you are that aware. And that's essentially how medics will carry their teams. As a medic, you will almost always end up carrying your team just because of your level of awareness. That stuff pretty much gets you a lot of mileage. Anyway, once your team is set up on the C point, mentally as a medic, I think once I get to this far on the C point, I win C. Whenever I get this far on the plane, this usually means we just have it locked down. The only time I wouldn't be confident if my dome man is dead and I have to depend entirely on my heavy to take care of the C point, which again isn't ideal. But the heavy is pretty good at locking down this point, because the only areas they could push is through here and through there, and your heavy and soldier should be enough to lock that down. And then once you have this area locked down, a very, 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 very big rookie mistake, even if the right team has wiped, is going through Death Hallway. I cannot tell you the countless amount of times that the team I was on, Kids Next Door, also known as KND or the Kids, we lost because we got ahead of ourselves. Like, well, the whole team went, but just go Death Hallway. It is so easy for someone to get picked off while going through Death Hallway. It is incredibly annoying because look how easy they can spam you from. If a soldier Delman spawn, they're just going to try to shoot you a million times through Hallway. Oh, we can counter that by having our Delman sticky out their spawn. That does not work very well, because that'll stop them from peeking probably for a little bit. That's not going to stop them for nearly as long as you think, because your Delman has to stay there until everyone on your team that's going through Death Flight gets on top of the D point. So while it's very tempting to go through Death Hallway to get to the D point the fastest, it is almost completely not advised, because if the enemy team has any DM diff compared to your team, you're probably just going to have a terrible, terrible time trying to walk to the D point. So what I heavily recommend instead is keep this jump in mind for walking up here, but there's plenty of ways to get back up here. Is to get back into this wishbone area. Sorry, my callouts are actually the worst thing. I don't remember half the callouts in this game. Is to get into this wishbone area here. And then, honestly, personally, what we used to do is that we would just walk back to spawn and rotate to A, because trying to force a push through here was longer, more excruciating, and more riskier compared to let's just spend the extra 15 seconds walking to A spawn to make sure we get a for sure solid push compared to what happened here. And that's the thing I think most teams do, because as a medic, if your team is trying to push through this gate here, there's not much you can do besides stand here, and if you get the chance, then rotate back over here. Very similar to when you're pushing from B to C. This hallway is pretty much where you're going to be staying if your team is trying to push through this main area here. I heavily advise against that, and I haven't played with a team doing that in a very long time. But if you're trying to walk out of Wishbone, again, this is going to be a classic tactic. You're just probably going to rotate a bunch. You don't want to peek this left side like this, because this also opens you up to cheeky sight lines. I recommend going from to the right side, make sure you're watching for spies again, and then jump over here compared to just dropping down. Because if you jump while you're so open up to the sight line, it's much, much less riskier compared to walking, and he gets a much easier shot. He pretty much sees your tippy toes and only sees your whole body pretty much at a bit more at the last second. It's still not that very hard of a shot, but anything that makes it harder on him is always a bonus in my book. So then once you get out of Wishbone here, this is self-explanatory. 9 times out of 10, the only thing to worry about here is a spy. You can easily just walk back through spawn. This is where I gotta use my no clip again. I was thinking no clips for some reason. I just hit the S key like an idiot. Almost did it again, man. Actually, I might need my no clip on because this gate's closed. So for those who are unaware, this gate opens up after you capture A. I'm sure everyone that's watched this know that, but just in case they're confused while I'm talking about this gate, it will not be here after you have A. And what I'm talking about is what you're going to be doing when you're pushing E through A. And remove? Really? I did not know that. I mean, it's better. What if I do end remove all? Oh god. I actually never knew that. That's actually really cool. Can I walk through it then? I don't have to worry about it. Oh my god. I never knew that. Oh, thank you. I know some cool tricks is that rocket jumping. You learn so much about the console through rocket jumping. But yeah, I mean, there won't be this left side of the gate. But something to keep in mind is that when you're pushing through A, biggest mistake pushing A, and I made this all the time, even close to when I stopped playing, when I was forced to stop playing, was walking over here like this. Never, ever, ever, ever do this. It's so easy to get spammed because soldiers, pyros, and sometimes the enemy combo will be holding here. They're going to shut you down so hard here. It's so easy just to die to spam on accident. And then don't forget, sometimes soldiers like to play up here. That's something for your team to be aware of, not really you. It looks like they blocked that off. Did they block that off? Well, if they didn't, just keep that spot in mind. That's a very annoying spot soldiers like to play in. And spies love to decloak in this spot too. You still perch up there? Oh, okay. But yeah, very big rookie mistake is staying around here. You want to play around the corner like this. That way, something randomly runs at you. You'll have a lot more time to react to it. Your team will have a lot more time to react to it to save you. Worrying about spy is much easier because you're still holding your back against the wall. And then you're not going to get spammed nearly as easy there. And the only time you should be going through this doorway is pretty much if you have Uber and you're going for an Uber exchange. If that's the case, 9 times out of 10, you're going to pop early. If you only pop early if the enemy combo is holding here. If it's just a flank holding here, try not to pop unless your combo calls to pop or you're absolutely forced to. But the only time you should pop early is if the combo is there and you're going for an exchange. But if not, you're going to be following your combo through here. Make sure you're hugging these walls to make it difficult. When you get over here, be super careful. Now, being inside this corner is not the worst thing. It's not the best. This spot is a little baity. Like, not baity for you for a team, but baity in a sense that it's very easy for an enemy team to want to decide that they're going to shoot you if you're staying in this corner here. It's just something to keep in mind. I don't think it's terrible to be here. Just don't try staying here for very long. Just make sure you're hugging the walls, watching for spy, just like at every other point where your team is going forward here. While your pyro should be spy checking here, you should also be aware of your environment as you're walking around here. And then when your team is walking through this area, a mistake I make a lot is me being antsy. Don't hug your teammates too close as they're walking through this area here, or even up here. Make sure you try to play a bit of a length here. If your combo is going to try to do an Uber through here, which honestly is a pretty solid Uber because you get in with Haidad and you get a little bit closer. Not the closest if they're watching you actively, but for the most part, it's a bit better Uber. Try not to be too far behind, but don't be too close. Like, let's say this arrow here is my demo man. I don't want to be playing right behind him like this while I stand there. I want to be over here like this. And as he walks over here, then I rotate here. And as he walks over here, then I rotate here. And then you can easily play reactive from that point on how you're going to play the Uber. The only time you're really going to do pushes like this if you have Uber or if the enemy team is mega down. The only thing you got to keep in mind is if you're playing over here, make sure you have players paying attention behind you over here. If not, make sure you're playing like this, where you have angles on both your pocket, the player you're healing, and if someone's trying to flank you over here. It's very easy for you to get flanked over here, or there's even situations where they'll come through the E point, through this doorway, and walk all over here to try to get play on you instead. Either way, no matter where they come from, if you're playing like this, at least you'll be able to be aware and react to where they're coming from. And it's a big reason why I mentioned that you probably shouldn't come this way if you have the Uber, because someone comes in at you and you don't have Uber, you're probably just going to die because you're in a very shitty spot to dodge people if they just choose to run at you while you're inside this tunnel. But if you're coming through here, just make sure you play on over here as much as you can. Don't get antsy and jump over the railing ASAP, because if you do that, the post Uber and the post Uber is not going good. You'll have no chance to escape. But if you do what I said here and stay behind this railing as you're doing the Uber on D here, you can easily just keep the Uber off on your pockets here. And then if the Uber is going good, you can still stay here and just be aware of what's going on. And it's also really good to be here to watch out for spies. The only thing to watch out for sometimes is snipers, but snipers 9 times out of 10 won't be there because they're going to be too scared of the Uber or they're going to be too scared of something else. Just make sure you don't make the mistake that I make and go over here, because then the sniper will just snipe you from spawn, and that sucks. Make sure you're staying on this right side here. The snipers shoot from below the medium highlight. Over here, they definitely do. But that's something not to really mention because there's no reason for you to ever go that far as medic. And I'd be lying if I said that I've died trying to cross over here before. But it's usually a non-factor just because you could just jump over that angle. But it's usually a sniper who snipes from over here isn't too much to worry about. You're usually gonna be more worried about a sniper who's gonna be trying to snipe at you from spawn, really from there. Snipers don't typically snipe from there unless they're desperate and they're trying to keep the D point held. But yeah, as I was talking about earlier, you can stay here, and then the Uber is going bad or things going bad in a situation. It's so easy just to back up from this hallway and just leave to A here. And make sure you leave to A. Do not try to leave through E, because there is going to be a level 3 there, a sniper there, wherever the fuck's going to be there. It's super easy to die. I feel like that is super self-explanatory, but countless times over the last 3 years, I have watched a lot of beginner medics try to leave through E instead for some godly unknown reason. Just leave through A. It's so much easier. And yeah, it sucks. You probably won't be healing people for a while, but you'll be alive, which is a lot better than waiting whatever long it takes to respawn before you start healing people again. And then once you have D locked down, then E is pretty much a free point, because when you capture D, for those who aren't aware, these things, there's gonna be a ledge, there's a ramp. It's so much easier to get on top of the E point. And the most important part is that these spawns get locked off. And when these get locked off, the only thing you have to worry about with medic is for your team to go forward. And again, you can still be here while your team is walking forward onto E. Just stay healing them from here, or if you want, you can go over here. Just make sure you're being careful about that spawn door there and that upper spawn there. You want to play in an area where you can back up in case they're being flooded, or you have the chance to at least defend yourself a little bit while your team can turn around to assist you. But once your team gets everything locked down there, I would recommend playing. Yeah, you could play around like this, so that you have to worry about less of the sight line. But 9 times out of 10, you can just walk straight over there. Like, the chance for him to see you is a very minor window, and sniper probably won't even be there. They're usually gonna get caught out there, in which case you can walk forward. Just make sure you're not standing like right here. If you're going to stand anywhere, make sure you're staying around this area. Because if you stand right here and your team is pressuring the combo, that sniper can easily just be up here behind a sentry gun, taking pot shots at your team, and you don't want to give them a free shot to kill you. But yeah, once your team is pushing into D, you can walk through here, and keep in mind the 4 spawns will be shut down, so spawns aren't going to be a thing for you to worry about. The only thing you get to worry about is for spies. Spies with a decloak here. Spies with a decloak super close around here and just run at you. The only thing is you and the medic and the pyro, who should be spy checking the situation, is to worry about the spy. And you may have to worry about a soldier who might bomb you from underneath there to up here. So what I like to do in that situation is I like to hug the left side just because of that. Because if you hug the right side, it's a lot easier to get caught out by the soldier. But yeah, I'll hug the left side. And you do get some room to work with to dodge, because at least this area up here. But ideally, as a medic, when your team is pushing into E from D, you're going to get on top of this platform. I believe they call this the Angel platform. And you can play super safe from up here. And if for any reason that you get pressure super hard and you got to leave, you can always do this jump from over here. And think I did that first try. That's a very easy jump. I still miss it sometimes. But you can always just back up over this way and leave this way to spawn, which is essentially leave the B through spawn. And this makes me want to bring up the last thing I want to mention for medic for pushing, which is pushing from B to E, which is a very, very common pushing angle. As I mentioned earlier in Wishbone, you are just going to stay here for the most part. It's not anything different I mentioned before. This is pretty much the angle you're going to work with. And you might be tempted to go a bit forward, which is perfectly fine. But if you go forward, let's say where I'm putting my arrow here. You see where that arrow is at? Treat it like it's split down the middle. You don't want to be to the left of that arrow because you open up the sight lines. You want to be on the right side of the arrow. If you're going to go forward here to heal people a bit more aggressively, just make sure on that right side of that arrow I mentioned, pretty much that right side, the right half of this little invisible line I'm putting up for you, just to make it slightly harder for snipers to get a good sight on you. Now, snipers do snipe from there occasionally, but it's super rare, but it is something just to keep in mind when you're in this situation. Now, pretty much that's everything I could think of to talk about for pushing for medic. I'm going to give it a little bit to when we catch our breather, and hopefully, if anyone has any questions about that push, I can talk about. I can address it while I'm catching my breath here. Don't be afraid, to ask me. I went on my Twitter while I'm recuperating my breath, and the first thing I see is like a giant ass. Please don't hesitate to ask questions about the giant ass I saw. What should Ubers look like around the E point of offense? The number one thing about when you're pushing on the E point is depends on the situation you're in. My first recommendation is that you always want to focus on trying to get to D, but I know a lot of teams will go from A, B, C to E, so they have to worry about the forward spawns, and I can go over that real quickly then. Let me get a sip of my shitty milk. Okay, so in a situation where you have D locked down, your number one goal should always be to shut down, to get on Angel platform and shut down everything. Because if you have D closed off, they lose that forward spawn, which is super valuable for the team that's defending E. And you deny all angles. You deny, obviously, the force spawn's gone, and then you can deny this wishbone entrance from the Angel platform. And then on top of that, they also have to push from down there, which is super mega height disadvantage. So they're pretty much they're gonna get mangled for being down there. So ideally, if you ever have to go Ubers, you should have D, and your focus should be to shut down the Angel platform, keep the ad from there. Even if they do get a better Uber, hopefully you should retain the height ad, and they are fighting uphill battle. Now in the situation where they don't have D, so you, the pushing team, do not own D, so you're going to be doing a push either through C, which is essentially you're pushing through Wishbone, or you're coming in through A. If you go in through A, then your number one focus as a team really should be to go through D and go straight to the forward spawn. And again, just lock down the forward point, shoot down the engineer, pretty much lock them out. But that is a very big ask. I am not blind to that because it's not as easy as you walk through here and get to the forward spawn. You're going to be denied by demo, pyro, sniper. A good chance not even be able to get away with it. If you're going through, there's a chance you might just have to do the exchange period in this A room. And that's the case, that's perfectly fine. Just make sure when you do the exchange, you want to put up as many stickies as you can as a demo man. So when the post Uber kicks off and Ubers are faded from the fight, the team either won't be committed to you anymore, or it's going to make it easier for you to run back in because you're going to have a shit ton of damage ready to come your way. But you are going to depend a lot on your pyro and heavy for damage taking. Pyro to deny the damage fly out, and heavy to take a bit of the HP sponging away from your Delman, so you're making take your Delman. It is very, very important for the soldier, scout, and Delman to work together to get this A area flushed out, or this A to D area flushed out. And I know this doesn't really sound like it has anything to do with E, but 9 times out of 10, if you're doing it, you capture C but don't have D to E push. 9 times out of 10, this is where the big fight's going to happen to get that E point ready. This is usually the deciding area. If you can get this area for free, that's perfect. That just makes it easier. I would just recommend going for D and doing exchanges there because it's really easy to do exchanges as the pushing team into the defending team from A to the real D point. But with that being said, to talk about the positioning from the wishbone area, which is probably what you had in mind when you asked that question, this is extremely difficult. This is a situation I heavily recommend being against because while I know these platforms are going to be out in this situation for you just to walk on and make the Ubers a bit better, it's super easy to get juggled, so you can get knocked off the platforms. Pyros can deny you super easily. You're coming in from a very terrible choke point, which is easy for the soldier, demo, and the sniper to pretty much essentially spam you at. But if you have to come through here and you want to play on the platforms, your only focus should be to deny this platform here. Ideally, you pop on your demo man and soldier. Your soldier bombs straight to the gun on the Angel platform, while your demo gets tanked for the rest of the Uber, and your soldier's just there for pretty much the support. When you're doing an Uber like this, while getting a counter Uber out for the enemy team would be ideal, good chance it's just not going to happen because enemy Meg it might be positioned pretty well not to get denied there. And the Meg is pushes up here for some reason, which isn't uncommon. Then perfect, you should get the force every day of the week, but good chance you won't. Meg might be closer to spawn or whatever. Your only goal should be to shut down the Angel platform and make sure they're going to get force trying to come back out forward spawn. Pretty much your goal should be to shut down this sentry gun. But as I said, if with that being said, I don't know if I addressed your question as good as I can. Is there a point I missed, or was not did I not cover the scenarios that we were thinking of? I'll give you a little bit to tell me, because those were the first two things that came to the top of my head when you mentioned it. You want? All right. Yeah, don't be afraid to ask me in DMs if you want. All right, and the next thing I'm going to talk about is medic on defense. Holy shit, this has been going on for an hour already. See, other map reviews are definitely going to be faster than this. It's just this is steel, and this takes a lot more effort than 99% of maps. All right, let's no clip, baby. I'm actually keep no clip on while I'm doing the defense because all the spawn doors. Actually, you know, we joined red team. I could just go pyro and then I get that instant respawn. I have thermal thrust for clipped. That's a big loud noise you heard. Alright guys, not to get political, but I even think kids are getting a little spoiled today with this fucking ammo things that tell them where the ammo's at. Like, I get the point of it. I really do. But I hate that. But anyway. So when you're defending on A, so the first point of defense for the mech is actually very straightforward because you have nothing to do with A. Now, I do recommend playing over here to watch the to help not watch the point, but to help buff your teams defending the point. Ideally, you're gonna have a demo man here, maybe even a sniper, or even your heavy over here, just spamming, just routinely being annoying. It's perfectly fine to do that. Oh, make sure, by the way, on defense, something that I think needs to be utilized way more is the Scottish resistance on defense for steel with Kritzkrieg. Keep in mind that your demo man can put stickies on B and A with crit stickies for again for B and A. Just something to keep in mind. I think that's something really fun to do, and you'll have enough time to get Uber. Because even if you don't get Uber by the time the clock hits 0, it's going to take them so long to get A captured. You know, plenty of time to go from A to B to get your Uber back. So that's just a quick little gimmick I want to throw out there. That's very fun to do, and there's no reason not to do it. But with that being said, you're going to be healing your team from over here. A big rookie mistake I see is Megs coming over here to do the healing, which there's really no point in doing that. Sorry, no clip's actually throwing me off. There's really no point in doing that. Because if you're over here and your team is getting backed up here, you just really risk eating a bunch of spam, and you risk getting bombed, being cut out, you even risk being backstabbed. Actually, no, I have dropped a couple of times to spy decloaking over here and just walking at me and just gets a little stupid stab on me or something like that. And that's something for your team to be aware of. Because while obviously you're going to see the spy before anybody if he comes here, there's no way you're going to see the spy and column your team's going to have enough time to react to that. So make sure your team is being proactive on that spy here. You're really the heavy you can kind of get away with, but you really shouldn't. But you really don't want to lose your demo man on these points. You don't want to lose either class really on these points, but it's something just to keep in mind when you're holding the fort down for the 8 point. Just really be wary of a spy being able to get up here. And that's why you want your pyro here, just shooting flames, because the only way the spy gets there is through here. So make sure your spy is being annoying about that. But with that being said, you do want to be careful with walking out the gate here. There's no reason for you to stand this far as medic. You can just stand here and be perfectly safe healing your team and taking them as you need. And you're pretty much inside of spawn. Just keep that in mind. This is just free buffing. But anyway, once A is being captured and it's none of your business anymore, you're going to be going over to the B point. There's nothing for you to worry about as you're locking over to B. But when you get to the B hole, there are pretty much 3 different type of ways you're going to be holding it. You're going to be even Uber with time to set up. And by that, I mean your team might do an aggressive hold, which is the hold I'm familiar with from KND. Now, at the top of my head, I don't know what the more often meta strategy is. I'm just talking about what I did on KND because I assume that's the common meta, but I could be wrong. So I'm sorry. The next part might be useless for you because I'm very iffy on this part. But on KND, we had a very aggressive fold hold on B that was really good, where we had a dispenser forward here that I would play behind to make it hard for something to drop down to get on top of me. And then I could focus on behind me in case a spy came over here to decloak on me. And we had a heavy up here with I don't know if we had a level 3 there. I think it was just a heavy with a soldier, I'm pretty sure, and we had the level 3 here instead. But we used to but I would stay here, and the only thing I have to worry about is drop down. And for drop down, the spy would call that for us. Our spy who was on the A point would say, oh hey, there's people going drop down, and then I would react from that. I would just play inside the fucking dispenser since they were just going to get a drop down headshot on me. But with that being said, yeah, I would play over here as the Meg, and the only thing I would react to is I would pay attention for the spy, who is more likely going to decloak from over here, or sometimes even up there. and I will pay attention to how the fight in main's going. You're going to be tanking your Devil Man for majority of this, and even your sniper. Your sniper definitely going to be getting tanked a lot here as they're trying to spam this main gate here. And if that was it, and you want to pay attention to how the fight's going. If Devil Man's getting owned, getting backed up, then you do have to be wary about a soldier coming in. The soldier might not bomb in simply because that's the existence of the sentry gun, but it's just something to be wary of. But the biggest things you gotta worry about are simply drop down and for the spy. And I'm not gonna lie to you, the drop down is actually very, very scary to worry about because that it's such a super easy headshot for the sniper if no one's paying attention. He could lock charged from the drop down while the forward just get an easy buy shot on you. That's why it's very important for the spy to make the comm. If your spy is not making the comm and drop down as a medic, just back up over here. It's literally not worth it to play that forward if you can't get the comm on the sniper. It does require a lot of cooperation if you're spy and good focus on your team. If you're not confident playing forward, there's really nothing wrong playing this far back. But anyone who's familiar with me is that if I have the chance to get aggressive footing, then I'm going to take the chance to get that aggressive footing. But that is what I'm familiar playing with. But for most mechs, this is the angle I'm at right now is probably what they're more familiar with. I had to take a guess. I really don't know what the meta is these days for this exact point. But when you're playing here, the only thing you have to worry about is really just the spy. And there's not really too much to talk about this spot. This spot is pretty normal. The only thing you react to is based on the situation with your sentry gun, the situation on your heavy, and the situation on your Devil Man, and the situation on your sniper. Well, that sounds like a handful to take care of. I pretty much treat it like a point system. When things get bad, I will back up to over here and start healing from around this range here. You want to be careful healing from over here because if your heavy loses up top here, it's very easy for a sniper just to run up there and get a good headshot on you. So if you ever watch me play Mech on C, you probably are more familiar with me playing over here to make sure I can't get sniped. The only thing to worry about extremely here is spies because there is a lot of decloak spots to get you. While the decloak spots seemed a bit nerfed because this is no longer a basement, it's just this angle here, so he doesn't have a lot of room to work for decloak. This spot here is still just as real as ever. This spot here is just still just as real as ever. So you really have to be super aware of spies. And your pyro cannot help you very well in this situation because if you ever get pushed that back as a team, then your Then your pyro's gonna be focused forward trying to deny spam. So it's very important for you as the medic to be the spy focused player on your team. And if you're super worried about spies, well, I recommend trying to be up here if you can. There's nothing wrong with being back here and just trying to heal and making it easier for you to keep focused on spies because again, you're in the corner. Just keep in mind of sacks, but you're probably not gonna get sacked down if your team's being aggressive. But if you're heavy, your pyro and sentry gun are down, there's a good chance you're gonna be ran at by a soldier or a scout. A big mistake I see medics make is try to back up over here to get to the C point. There's literally no reason for you to do that unless something changed on this point, which I'm pretty sure didn't. But if your team is ever getting owned on B, there's really no reason not to back up to spawn. It's closer, it's safer, it's harder to get chased, it's easier for your Devil Man to lock people down inside this tiny choke. It's much tinier than the other choke. And then once B is capped, you get the forward spawn to C. But to reiterate, I was talking about earlier about especially that point system is that if I'm holding this far forward, I treat my holds like points. If we lose the sentry gun, I say we lose 1 point of defense, which we can still hold. If I lose the heavy, that's 2 points of defense, which is much harder to hold. I'm starting to think, okay, maybe it's time to get ready to back up. Or if I lose the sentry gun and heavy, that's 3 points. I'm backing up. It's no longer safe to play as far forward. It's much easier to get bombed. If I lose a pyro or Demo Man, I treat pyro as 1 point lost in defense. Demo Man I treat as 2 points lost on defense. For a reference about what my thought process is when it comes to when I'm going to be backing up in these scenarios. So I'll be playing forward here, and once I see these points accumulating or coming back, I position myself. If I'm confident my team can hold this point, I'm focused on spies. I'm taking my people that are forward, make sure everything's okay. I see things are getting bad. I'm getting ready to back up. I'm not fully committed to back up. I'm getting ready. And I see things got slightly even, only like 1 point worse. I'm backing up over here. I'm backing up. Things are looking bad. And then react from there. Sometimes my team will tell me, no, we're actually doing good. We can hold. Then I'll react to that and play with them aggressively there. Or they'll tell me that makes sense. Well, they won't even tell me that. They'll just back up with me, and then we just hold the point. But yeah, just make sure when you're backing away from B that you're going to this resupply up here. Don't try to leave through this gate here. There's almost no reason to do that unless something's already inside of here, making it possible for you to leave here. And don't make the rookie mistake of staying down here trying to heal people forward. If you are backing up and you are inside of here backing up, Don't change your mind and heal people here. Just fucking leave. That's it. If you want to heal people here, do it from here. But if you see that point's almost captured, don't be cute. Don't try to get away with a couple extra heals. Just get your ass in spawn and just forward spawn to the C point. Do not waste your time with trying to see if you can get any extra points, because that is a very, very, very big rookie mistake. Those 20 extra hit points are not worth risking losing a whole medic for the abysmal spawn, which is CP steal defense. And for those who don't know, if you die in CP steal defense, you're probably waiting 25 fucking seconds before you play the game again. And that is 25 seconds of respawning is over 50% Uber. You pretty much lose an Uber if you die in medic, even if you died at 0%. You lose so much when you die in those situations. We time to get another sip of my drink here. All right, next thing I want to talk about here is C-point defense. C-point defense for medic is very, very tricky. I think out of the whole defense for CP Steel, this is probably the trickiest one. And the reason because of that is simply because of pretty much the sniper angles, or not even just angles, just spam angles in general. Playing over here as medic is pretty much a no-go. This is a very rookie mistake I see where medics play. If you want to heal a Delman who's over here and stuff like that, that's fine if you want to play here. But actually, what I personally recommend is playing over here instead and healing your heavy. I think healing your heavy and Delman from over here is much better. But if your Delman wants to play over there for some reason compared to here, by the way, there's no reason for Delman to play there instead of here. I don't know why they don't stay here. Then you can easily get away with standing over here. Just something to keep in mind is that you do probably want to play over here instead, and just make sure you don't walk to the right, because this is pretty self-explanatory. If you walk to the right, you're easier to spot, you're easier to get bombed, there's a potential sight line over here, it's not worth it. Just hug the left wall instead and heal your players from here, and make sure you're turning around, make sure you keep an eye on the spy. This is a point where your pyro should be very spy focused, because there's a chance people will just come from all the way over here to get a sneaky flank on you, and your pyro, if he's spy focused, have a good chance. And please keep in mind, if your pyro's being spy focused, you don't want your pyro fucking running all the way over here spewing flames while your whole combo's over here. Your pyro might as well just play around you, watching out for the spy. There's no reason to go on like a whole hunt trying to catch that spy. Much better for your pyro to be checking around here every now and then, so that way if something runs from over here, your pyro can protect you. But just something to keep in mind, playing as medic, just do it from over here. If you do, and just make sure if you're playing over here, you're heavy at least your heavy has to be here. If no one's here and you're playing there, a soldier will bomb here and kill you. If there is no one here and you're standing here, you will die. It is super easy. It's super important to keep in mind what is standing there to keep you safe. If you don't see anyone there, ideally a very high damaging class that can defend you quickly like a heavy, I wouldn't recommend standing here. I recommend playing closer to over here or closer in spawn and until your team is ready to go forward. Because the thing that sucks about this point is that if you're caught out by like an inch, like let's say if you're caught out over here past this little line, or if you're caught out on the right side here and there's no one here to defend you, it is very, very, very easy to die on C, which makes this point a bit difficult because it's much easier to get punished much more severely just for more minor mistakes. So what you want to do here is that if your team's not set for defense at all, don't be afraid to play borderline spawn, because you really don't get much of a choice on the C point as medic. But yeah, you see people are standing over here. I think this is the best place to stand for medic because you can rotate heals very well throughout over here. Just keep in mind sniper sight lines if you go to the right wall, and try not to push up forward here if you don't have to. As a medic, and pretty much as the red team in general, there is no active benefit for playing on top of the point like this, because when you do, it just makes it easier for the blue team to get an easier time to get cheesy picks on you. Because please keep in mind, very similar to King of the Hill, if your soldier dies just to kill a scout, for example, that scout spawns in 5 seconds, that soldier spawns in 25 seconds, it's absolutely fucking not worth it. So just something to keep in mind when your team is doing holds on C. You're much better doing holds on C from over here and over here. Now, if you have good picks and want to get more forward to get more spam or grounded, there's nothing wrong with that. Just do not commit your whole team to trying to do a forward hold on C, because 9 times out of 10, you're going to get fucked for doing that compared to trying to play safe in spawn. And the cool benefit of playing it safe through spawn is that they decide to rotate to A to go to E to do an A push. It is much easier to rotate from spawn over here compared to walking all the way back from C, or how far forward you decided to be to rotate to the E point. And that reminds me, Abe, which is ABE, is a very common push tactic for a lot of teams on Steel. And while I can't go over super detail about how to counter an Abe push, at least for the medic, a big rookie mistake is how they treat being in spawn here. Now, I have died countless times from going over here, being completely unaware of the soldier. The soldier is the class that's going to fuck you up the most in this situation, usually, because he can easily just, again, get cheesy bomb on you, 2-click rockets, you're a tight room, there's not much you can do to dodge it. But if you have good focus on a soldier is dead, you can easily play around here while leading your team that's a bit forward. Just do not peek forward like this, because this leads to a sight line. And peeking forward to this left side is actually perfectly fine for the most part. I love healing people from here, actually, as long as the soldier is dead and I'm not worrying about spam, for the simple fact that there's really nothing the enemy team can do to punish you. Spies can't decloak here. There's no sniper sight line here, and you actually get a good aggressive healing spot over here. So I do, but I don't really recommend coming over here as much, just because you get put into spam, put in a sight line, and while you get more room to walk around with, the reality is this tiny doorway, while as tiny as it may be, as long as the soldier's not pressuring you, you're gonna be fine. And if the soldier is pressuring you, you should be playing closer to spawn. You can't playing over here with the soldiers pressuring you is not playing over here. If the soldier is spawned or pressuring you is not an excuse. There's no reason to play over here compared to the left side. If soldier's pressuring you, just play in spawn. Don't rotate to the right side. It's not worth it. Just something to keep in mind. And the next thing I'll bullet point through real quick is the D point. When, let's say if you lose C and your team wants to defend D, usually when you're on a D defense, you're going to probably be holding inside a lobby for the most part. You do want to get a lobby hold going. But while I'm over here, if you're not in lobby, and your team is just barely holding on to D or something chaotic's happening, just play in spawn or play from over here and get your heals out from over here. A big mistake that I made, and I've seen other people make, is try to play medic over here. This is not a good idea, because in the middle of all this chaos, snipers love to peek from over here, and that is a very extremely easy kill on the medic. It's much better to play over here. While the sniper can still get an easy sight line, it's much harder compared to over here. And you can still get some good heals out from over here. And you're so close to spawn that if someone decided to switch focus on you, you're still going to be okay. But yeah, I do recommend playing closer to spawn this left side here if you got to peek a little bit to get heals, compared to going to this right side and walking into a pretty severe sight line. That's very common for snipers to come through when they're trying to do a push on the D. But again, what I just mentioned there for mech is pretty much in a chaotic situation where you're barely holding on to D. Normal D holds might be more similar, where your team is holding a bit more aggressively towards lobby, at least. If that's the case, not similar out to an offense mech. You can actually play around this angle, assuming they don't have Angel Platform. If they have Angel Platform, you're just screwed. But assuming you have a normal hold going on, your team is holding on D a bit normally, trying to wiggle the room into into the A lobby. You can easily play around. Just make sure you're careful about this left side here. Don't hug the left side like this, trying to get into here. You want to hug the right side, because while this gives a sniper more room to kill you, sniper should almost never be in there. If there's a sniper there, he should die instantly. It should be called way ahead of time before you're even risk going in there. And second reason is if you're this close and there's a spam class who is much more likely to be in there, it's much easier for him to kill you from over here compared to back here, because super easy just shoot a rock here and get a bunch of damage, and you can react so much better. Like if I'm over here, soldier's back to shooting rocket at me, I could be like, oh, I walk to the left and avoid eating splash, or I just do that. Just something to keep in mind. And as you're locking forward over here, to make sure you're not hugging the left side, I would hug the right side, just because it helps avoid the spam as you're walking the lobby. Then once you're set up in lobby, big mistake is being over here. Well, when you're the blue team pushing into lobby into D, being in here as a blue mech is not very dangerous for a short period of time. Even for a short period of time, this is super dangerous to be as mech, because it takes one Uber exchange or one silly push to come through, and you're going to get instant murked. As a meg, I recommend playing from over here and just being aware of spy, because spy is going to be by far the most annoying thing you deal with as meg on this point. Your team's going to hold down lobby, a spy is going to come in from probably over here, maybe inside of here, or even from around this corner over here. Spy can be very annoying at this point. It's very important that your pyro is focused on spy checking, but there's going to be times where the enemy team is pushing, your pyro has to switch over to being aggressive and dying Ubers, and then it's going to be your time to watch out for that. Ideally, in situations where they're pushing forward, your heavies should switch to spy checking. Truth be told, I think the heavies should be spy checking much more in this situation compared to the pyro, because the pyro can just focus on anti-spam duty compared to and the heavy can be a full-time spy duty sort of situation, while you're also helping your heavy out with the spy as well. Just something to keep in mind. Just as a make sure you never get trapped in a scoring here. This is a very big rookie mistake. Play over here, watch your spy if you're heavy. And if you really have to, then you could potentially play over here. But this spot's also scary. While it's not as scary as this, it's very easy for an uber stream to happen, or someone to run it in a sack and getting stuck in this corner here, because this is a very tight corner. But it's not as bad as that one, because this one is so close and every mech stands here, so everyone knows to shoot here. I much prefer playing back over here and just watching out for spy. And the spy is that you can just focus on forward, make sure nothing's running at you, and you're all close to clear from there. And if you do get pressured from D and things are going bad, we'll leave from this way. If you need to get out as fast as you can, don't walk all the way over here and try to get to the staircase that way. You're much better being over here, things go bad, and make sure you practice your movement. My movement's a bit rusty. And run away this way. This way is much better to the forward spawn here, for the simple fact that it's super easy to get caught up with while you're in that hallway, and that's the easiest way to get to other teammates if your combo's getting owned in lobby. That's just something to keep in mind when you're trying to back up as medic here. Now, let's say that your guys are in crunch time. The enemy team has very little time to push into the E point. You need some time and you're just going to hard focus on E. Your number one position as medic is either going to be down here where I mentioned, where you can heal everyone from over here, or you're probably going to be an angel platform up here and healing people from up here. Try not to get pinned back here for obvious reasons. Sniper can get up spawn up here. There's things here. If you get bombed, well, over here it's easy to get forward heals and not get sniped. It's really easy to get spammed and bombed from up here if the sentry gun has to focus on a lot of things at once, or if there's no sentry gun. So ideally you would do a lot of your healing down here if you're doing a hardcore A push. Here it's much easier to heal people. You're still forward healing and you can react to comms and bomb comms and things of that nature. Much easier compared to any other way. Alright, this is going to be, alright. And then we'll say, for example, if you're holding E, but you lost D, so staying this forward spawn is not even an option for you in the first place, then your next best bet would be to, well, there's actually no best bet. It's a really shitty situation to be in. Ideally, you'd be coming with your team down here and trying to span the point from below. This could be very difficult to do, though, because it's very easy to get denied here. Their next best bet is to see if your team has enough time to rotate into here. And if this is the case, if your team is rotating through here to defend E after losing D and E's getting flooded, and this is the situation being pushed in, just make sure you're not making a rookie mistake as Meg and walking towards the forward spawn, healing your team. Sometimes you have to do that, which is okay. It's chaotic. You got to think fast. Just if you got to think fast like that, biggest thing to keep in mind is that who recently spawned on the blue team and to be paying attention who's coming in from that spot. Ideally, you'd be playing around here, taking your teammates as they're flying forward, and you're looking behind for to make sure no big class is coming to flank you. But that's really the most you can do as making a chaotic situation. Just keep in mind who's spawning, who's running at you. Now, with this being said about the E defense, I know it was a much faster than the offense, but I think the offensive mech on this point is much more nuanced and complicated compared to the defense. I do think defending on this point's mech is very straightforward, much easier compared to the offense. But that's really all I had to say on the defense. And so before I finish this off, I'll give you guys a couple moments to ask me any questions that you might have about the point before I close it off. Because after this, I'm going to talk about some quick bullet points about what you want to focus on, specifically for this map. No questions here. I'll still give it like a couple minutes. Clay wants to know what are the coolest jumps on the map. Oh, easy. I know that one off the top of my head. By far the coolest jump on this map is jumping from here to the point. If I don't make this jump on the first try, I was gonna say I was gonna kill myself. But I don't want to say that. I'm gonna say something else instead. I'll be very sad. But this is the coolest jump. That's the coolest one. But imagine I made it instead. Oh, I try doing it in official matches all the time, man. Well, the trick is to jump as late as possible, and you want to land on this little corner here. You want to land on this thing right here. I'm sure you understand that, though. If I focus really hard on this little corner piece, it's so much easier to make it. That's usually how I try to focus on making that jump. It's a hard jump, though. I'm not gonna lie. It's not easy. But yeah, I'm gonna end off the map review here. Holy shit! You see my camera? We're flying. From lobby door to platform for E with the pipes. What do you mean by a lobby door? Like over here? I'll do that. I'll do that after I finish this off. But yeah, like so the biggest thing that you're gonna probably focus more on this map compared to other maps is Meg, that you're gonna be a lot more pressure to watch spies for your team as you're doing pushes and a couple of defenses. And remember, you're going to be focusing a lot more on playing proactive instead of reactive. It's really important for you to focus on the comms and the positioning of the enemy team, so you know where to position yourself better, mostly based on where the soldier is going to be and depending on where the sniper is. Those are very two important classes for you to focus on as medic to make sure you understand where you are positioning yourself. Uh, but those really are the two biggest things you're gonna focus on compared to the other maps. Just please keep in mind what I said about where you want to stand and don't want to stand. There's definitely some do not stand. You know, everyone stands here spots on this map because it's just way easier to die there. Just things you want to keep in mind when you're trying to do, you know, some typical holds like on the map. But yeah, I think I went over everything pretty solid. I know it's not perfect, and I do apologize if my advice is a bit out of date. Again, it's been like 3 years, but I do think having something out there is better than absolutely nothing. So I hope this is good for people to watch. I know this is still on the lengthier side, even though I wanted to avoid that, but unfortunately, it was unavoidable just because of the map we're talking about. To keep in mind, Highlander Medic is harder than Sixes Medic, so there's a lot more stuff you have to talk about. And on top of that, this is CP Steel. This map has 5 control points, which is more than payload. And there are so many chokes and turns and way to play it. There's just a lot more to talk about the other maps, but which is a big reason why I wanted to get this done as soon as I could, because it is a map that requires some setting for you to be confident playing on. But with that being said, I am done with the map review. I'm still going to be streaming. The stream's not over. I'm just going to highlight the map review at some point.